In some states in America and other countries with legal capital punishment, there exists an interesting custom for criminals on death row, the infamous last meal. Convicted felons are granted the opportunity to select any food and drink of their choice within certain regulations on the eve of their execution. Here are some of the strangest meals ever recorded. Victor Harry Feger. In 1963, 28-year-old Victor Harry Feger was sentenced to death by hanging for convicted kidnap murder. For his final meal, the young man had only one request: a single olive with the pit left in. After his execution, the olive pit was found inside Feger's suit pocket, contributing to the popular belief that he intended to be buried alongside it so that the olive tree symbolizing peace would sprout from his grave. For a dangerous criminal, it's almost a touching sentiment. Gerald Lee Mitchell. Gerald Lee Mitchell's final meal was even sweeter than Feger's, but in an entirely different sense. As he awaited his final moments on death row, Mitchell had only one thing on his mind when it came to his final meal: an assorted bag of Jolly Ranchers candy. After finishing the entire bag before facing the final curtain, it's safe to say this criminal intended to go out on a real sugar high. Lawrence Russell Brewer. While some have a clear idea of the last thing they'll ever eat, others are totally spoiled for choice. Taking full advantage of this unusual opportunity, convicted killer and white supremacist Lawrence Russell Brewer decided to indulge in an enormous feast in 2011. He requested 2 fried chicken steaks with gravy and onion, a triple bacon cheeseburger, a cheese omelet with ground beef, tomatoes, onions, bell peppers, and jalapenos, 3 fajitas, a meat feast pizza, a bowl of fried okra, a pound of barbecued meat with half a loaf of white bread, peanut butter fudge with crushed peanuts, and a pint of Bluebell ice cream, all washed down with 3 root beers. In a final screw you to the justice system though, Brewer refused to eat a morsel when the order arrived, claiming that he wasn't hungry. Texas Senator John Whitmire was so furious that he decided to ban the last meal request in the state. So, future death row prisoners have Lawrence Russell Brewer to blame for regular prison slop. John Wayne Gacy. Another felon who capitalized on his last meal request was the notorious serial killer John Wayne Gacy, otherwise known as the Killer Clown Pogo. For his final supper, Gacy ordered 12 fried shrimp, a bucket of original recipe KFC, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. Prior to his conviction, Gacy had managed 3 KFC restaurants in his home city of Waterloo, and he clearly never got tired of that finger-licking goodness. John Spanklink. For some, food isn't the priority at all when it comes down to making a last order. Previously known as a heavy drinker, Spanklink denied any special food to be prepared, but asked for a single flask of Jack Daniels instead, which he shared with the prison superintendent. After his death, the state of Florida's last meal provisions was revised to exclude alcohol altogether. Eileen Wuornos. Eileen Wuornos also requested a beverage before taking her last breath in 2002, but of a different kind. A single cup of black coffee was all she wanted. It may seem like this request was her way of saying, "Don't even think about killing me before I've had my morning coffee," but Wuornos actually had far crazier motivations. In fact, she didn't believe she was going anywhere for long, as her notorious last words were, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus June 6th. It's safe to say she still hasn't turned up yet. Ricky Ray Rector. Ricky Ray Rector seemed to have similar motivations when it came to his last meal. Rector had ordered a tasty-sounding meal consisting of steak, fried chicken, and cherry Kool-Aid, followed by a slice of pecan pie, but he left his dessert untouched. When asked why he changed his mind on the sweet treat, Rector simply said he was saving it for later. Whether this was intended as an ironic joke or a sinister hint that his return in the afterlife was imminent is entirely up to you. Timothy McVeigh. What this senseless killer ordered as his last hurrah might surprise you, given the seriousness of his crimes. All McVeigh wanted to eat before his execution in 2001 was 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream. Though it's unclear whether one remained chilled as he guzzled down the first, or simply melted into a puddle beside it. To be honest, for a man responsible for 168 innocent deaths, even melted ice cream seems far too generous. David Leon Woods. Convicted murderer David Leon Woods spent a whopping 22 years on death row before he was put to death on May 4, 2007 in Michigan, Indiana. When the daunting moment finally came, Woods had a fairly simple request for his last meal. He chose a standard pizza and an entire birthday cake, both of which he shared with his family. As it turns out, his birthday was actually 3 months after his execution. Thomas J. Grosso. Thomas J. Grosso was not the brightest of the bunch, and when Judgment Day came in 1995, his final meal request reflected his questionable life choices. He ordered a plethora of extravagant foods, like 24 steamed clams, half a dozen barbecued ribs, a Burger King double cheeseburger, and 2 strawberry milkshakes alongside a can of SpaghettiOs, to be served at room temperature. When Grosso's meal arrived, he was served spaghetti and meatballs instead, a mistake he'd never forgive, as his final words were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." Stephen Wayne Anderson. Grosso isn't the only one to throw a seemingly random ingredient into the mix when concocting the perfect final meal. Stephen Wayne Anderson was a pretty deadly criminal, but his food choices were interesting, to say the least. Before his execution in California in 2002, the 48-year-old requested 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, a pint of cottage cheese, a hominy corn mixture, peach pie and chocolate chip ice cream, and, well, a big helping of radishes on the side. Velma Barfield. This sweet God-fearing grandmother became known as the Death Row Granny. Velma Barfield was the first woman put to death in the U.S. in 22 years, when she was executed by lethal injection in 1982, but not before she was granted one final meal. A cup of tea, a slice of coffee cake, or a fruit scone might be what you'd expect. But all Barfield really wanted was a packet of cheese doodles and a can of Coke. But for a devout Christian old lady who also killed 6 people, what can you really expect? Peter J. Mignol. Convicted killer Peter J. Mignol could give Lawrence Russell Brewer a run for his money for one of the biggest orders ever served on death row in 2004. Mignol confessed to his crimes and was vocal about being ready to pay the price, but not before he gorged himself on this whopping order. He requested 20 beef tacos, 20 beef enchiladas, 2 double cheeseburgers, a pizza with jalapenos, fried chicken, spaghetti with salt, and a modest dessert of half a chocolate cake, half a vanilla cake, cookies and cream ice cream, caramel pecan fudge ice cream, and a small fruit cake. To wash it all down, he also had 2 lots of Coke, Pepsi, root beer, and orange juice. Maybe he intended to explode Henry VIII style before facing the music. James Edward Smith. This convicted felon had one of the most bizarre last meal requests ever recorded. When it came down to his final meal request in 1990, all he wanted was a lump of soil. Although some have speculated that he did indeed intend to chow down on the dirt, others have suggested he planned to perform a voodoo ritual, as the soil was specified to be the Ricunda type, associated with witchcraft. As dirt was not on the list of foods permitted by prison regulation, Smith's request was denied and he was served a cup of yogurt instead, which of course is the only reasonable alternative. So, what would you order if you were in their position? And which meal intrigued you the most? Thanks for watching. Share your opinions in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe to new videos. See you soon.